Hey folks, Valentin the Mad here, and as you can see, we have a new format with commentary. So as you know, the detailed review series is at the moment over. To make a long story short, those videos took a huge amount of time to make, about $100 or so per review on the recent ones. There was an increasing amount of BS on the platform since 2017, and so I decided that without funding, I am no longer willing to put in that kind of work. Something that in hindsight, I should have done much earlier. But still, I want to bring better content, and particularly for the folks who do support the channel on Patreon, so I think I found a good middle ground. After making a demonstration, when I'm decently familiar with the Gore system, I'll do a live commentary over the game, showcasing and discussing the response mechanics. It can be as I'm playing the game, over footage I have from the demonstration, or a combination of both. It won't be a detailed review of every aspect of the Gore system, of every feature and every notable issue, but it will give you a better idea of what the response is like, discussing stuff that may not be very clearly visible in a demonstration format. The videos in this format will be available a week early for Patreon supporters of all tiers, so for as low as $1 a month, you'll get those videos early, and if enough folks will chip in, the full review series will return, regardless of the situation on the platform. I have more video types in this live commentary format in mind, so stay tuned for more. Now, with all that in mind, here is the first video in the Gore Impressions format. Okay folks, so here we go. As you can see, first game is Hellish Quart. So this is a game I was basically immediately interested in, and largely for two reasons. The first one is the historic setting. As you can see, it looks very cool and it is very well executed. But the second reason is kind of Gore-related, and that is the realistic time to kill. In, I believe it was possibly the first gameplay video, you see a sword going through the character, and it stops the fight, you know. In many games they just continue fighting, swords going through each other all the time, like someone gets hit very brutally in the head and they just keep fighting, but in this game, a good hit is a fight stopper. And it's not just kind of like a one-hit kill mechanic, one slash and you're out. Characters can survive slashes, they can survive hits, but one very good hit will finish the fight. And actually this aspect is configurable. In the options menu, I think it was the gameplay setting, you have a damage multiplier, so you can up it and make it almost a one-hit kill thing. Or you can reduce it and allow characters to take more punishment before they go down. Moving on to mutilation, so Dismemberment. You can chop off heads and hands. The flying hands are quite nice, and as you can see in this video and in the demonstration, the flying hands can often be a sort of a comic relief really. Now a comment I saw in the demonstration video was about how hands come off way too easily, and of course there is some truth to that. But I should mention a few things. The damage multiplier affects the ease of dismemberment too. So in the default setting, it is pretty rare. It will probably take, I don't know, probably took me about 40 rounds, maybe even more, before I saw a hand come off like in vanilla default settings. And if you do max it out, it will be more common. And I should know that in the current early access build, it is not as common as it was in the demo. In the demo, hands were coming off very liberally, but in the current build, even with the damage multiplier maxed, it is, or at least seems to be, in my impression, to be far less frequent. Now as for the hands, those seem to come off only on the execution. Now when you see that, many aspects seem to be work in progress. As you can see this stump texture there, the splash coming from the neck, definitely very excessive and, as you can see, not staining anything. And the ending of the animation on the receiving end. As you can see, the hands are kind of like still held in a combat position, character still holds the sword. So yeah, I'm just going to assume it's most likely work in progress stuff. But the main point of feedback I have regarding dismemberment in general would be adding something like a partial dismemberment feature for the bits that you can't chop off at the moment, like the arm at the elbow, the arm at the shoulder, perhaps the leg at the knee. And you can see it in Mordhau and Gibbs Splat 2 mod, and it's a really fun feature. And I think that if you have enough force to chop someone's head off when the edge is very well aligned, or chop someone's hand off, you should probably be able to make the arm dangle if you make a very good hit at the elbow or shoulder levels. Or for example, if you make a very good hit at the knee level, you will see the character immediately drop to a kneeling position, the leg kind of like dangling, getting in a really nasty, awkward position there, because the leg would be affected by physics and the character would be in a deeply in pain animation. So yeah, partial dismemberment, that's the only suggestion I have for dismemberment in the body damage aspect. We'll get to blood spilling shortly. Now as for non-dismembering damage, you have two responses. The first one is the slashes you see at the point of impact. And as you can see, they look quite nice. There's definitely some kind of bump mapping there, or something along those lines. There's some blood around it. It does react to lighting, which does help give it depth. And those will appear at the point of impact, or at least where the game registered the hit. Because you will often see this slash thing right around the middle of the face, so you can kind of get an impression immediately that those wounds might be pre-made, but they really are not. There are issues with this mechanic with the non-dismembering damage, to which we'll get right now. So the very first and most obvious one is the wound's alignment. You will see it most commonly on the face when you'll see a sword going sideways, but the wound will appear vertically. And you won't really have to slow down the footage or watch it frame by frame. It is most clearly obviously seen this way, but it is something you will feel in the combat, when you see your sword going in one direction and the wound appearing wrongly. Another issue is some roughness when it comes to wounds on close. Now, I don't really mind when wounds get kind of overly stretched. I don't think it's a big deal. It's just a thing that happens in 3D games that have wounds at the point of impact. But there will be this issue on certain characters where wounds seem to kind of flicker in a way, and that will be noticeable. But as you can see, you have this close simulation, that's how the wounds work, so it might get fixed, it might not get fixed, but personally, I'll take sometimes buggy wounds at the point of impact over gloriously smooth, beautiful pre-made stuff any day. And speaking of beautiful pre-made stuff, moving on to the second non-dismembering feature, the blood on the characters. So in addition to that slash we just discussed, you'll often see more blood. So that stuff, it is pre-made, you will see several patterns that are kind of mapped on various parts of the character, so it's very clear on this one. You'll see this beautiful sputter pattern on his arm, but you'll see it happen over and over again. And on, I think most, if not all characters, you hit them in the face, and there's a sputter pattern on their torso. And those can look very nice, as you can see. That looks quite good. But as with basically any pre-made stuff, when it happens over and over and over again, it just doesn't feel quite as good. In Hellish Quart you do have the wounds at the point of impact, and that is the most dominant response, so you have that. But it would be really cool to see the sputter patterns coming directly from the slash wound, and having them vary based on the severity of the hit. So a mild slash would give you something like that, with some bleeding, not too much, but something very severe would make a very bloody Gore's response directly from the point of impact. So I think that if the alignment issue can be fixed, if the blood can come directly from the slash itself, the feedback would be bloody amazing. Okay, so moving on to blood spilling, The first response is those splashes you see on most impacts. So as you can see, the stain is very much proportional to the splash itself, and it looks quite nice. I like the coloring, I would say art direction for the patterns. It looks quite good. However, there are issues. So the first one is mainly a matter of preference, and I don't want to hear your opinion in the comments, but I think that the stains for this kind of hit are excessive. And I'm not looking for a realistic response or anything like that, but I do think that for such a hit, for just the initial impact of sword going through a character, the stain could have been milder. It probably should be bigger than what would realistically happen, but just not as massive as this. I think milder stains, kind of something along those lines, would have looked better. And another really odd issue is that those stains will disappear, and pretty quickly, as you can see, like 5-10 seconds. And that's really odd to me, just because of the nature of the game. You have one character fighting one character, and even with the damage multiplier reduced to minimal, you won't be able to feel the playing arena in so many stains. It's going to slow down your PC, so I do think the stain disappearance is quite odd. And as I always say in the reviews, the amount of stains and bodies on the map should be configurable, but in this game, I think that on high settings, they probably should just stay by default. If your PC can run it on high, it can probably handle all the stains you have within a match. The next feature is some spinning you see for hand dismemberment. And as you can see, the stains do follow the character, but I'm pretty sure that the looks are work in progress stuff, because you've seen how the response stains look, and this is basically entirely different coloring, very different style, and really doesn't look quite as good. So we have the mechanic of the stains following the hand stamp, and I think that with some work on the looks to make them resemble more the initial response stains, and perhaps spawning more stains as the character moves the bleeding hand stamp. So with some more work on the looks, I think it can deliver really good feedback. And the final issue is all those instances where you see characters bleeding that will leave no response at all. You'll see characters bleeding profusely, but that leaves nothing. The ground will be clear. Now on the question of blood pooling, I don't think it's hugely necessary. I do think that the game very much needs blood trails for heavily injured characters. Basically every time you see the character bleeding now, that should leave stains. It would definitely deliver a stronger effect if you saw a blood pool form after a devastating fatal hit, but due to the nature of the game, unlike many others, in this case, I think it's not hugely important. Now as for the animations, all I can say is stuff looks great. It really does. You have very good looking response animations, very well made death animations, and there's even a tired state if you swing too much. I think being injured also makes that happen more quickly. I've also seen something about limping animations for leg injuries. Personally, I haven't seen it yet in my playthroughs of the game, so it could be in and I just haven't saw it, or it could be something just planned for the future. Perhaps the only feedback I would have for the animations is seeing an animation morph into a ragdoll on some very devastating hits, the kind of stuff that would cause an almost instant lights out. I think it would help give it a little bit more variety. But anyway, for this game, for how it plays, the animations aspect is really quite excellent. Now as for the conclusion, I think overall it's going in a really good direction. As you can see, there are issues, there are some clearly work in progress stuff, but it doesn't feel hugely lacking in any aspect. So I think if all the WIP stuff gets finalized, if every time you see blood spilling, it will actually stay in the environment, if all the stains on the environment will be in the style of the response stains, and if the wound alignment issues will be fixed, I think we're gonna be looking at a very, very solidly responsive experience when it comes out of early access, hopefully sooner. And if along with that the dismemberment can be enhanced and you will see beautiful blood patterns come directly from the wound, I think we have something truly exceptional. Okay folks, hope you like this new format. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I will be looking to improve this format within reason, and I am very much looking forward to see where we can get with this. And as I mentioned, I do have more things in this style planned. So right now, I really wanna hear your feedback, and until next time.